Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Namaskaram to all and welcome to the 12th episode of Śiva-Bodha-Mālikā. Today, we look at the last of the 8 heroic deeds of Shiva. This is the form of Shiva known as Jalandhara-samhāra-mūrti or Jalandhara-Vada-mūrti. The form of Shiva that destroyed or put an end to Jalandhara. Who was Jalandhara and what is the story behind it? The Puranas say that once Indra was on his way to Kailasa to have a darshana of Shiva, but he had a lot of arrogance in him. So, to put an end to his arrogance, Shiva comes in the form of a yogi and obstructs his way to Kailasa. Not paying heed to the yogi and not even venerating or greeting the yogi, Indra insults him and decides to go ahead. This enrages Shiva in the form of the yogi, who takes his form of Shiva and decides to burn Indra through the fire of his third eye. But immediately recognizing this to be Shiva, Indra asks for pardon by falling at the feet of Shiva. Shiva, being the Kshipra Prasada Murti, immediately pardons Indra, but the fire that has got released from his eyes is diverted. Instead of going towards Indra, it is diverted towards the ocean. But being the Agni that's come from Shiva himself, that fire that goes into the waters, into the ocean, takes the form of a being known as Jalandhara. Now, why is this being known as Jalandhara? Because this person was brought up in the waters. The person took birth in the waters and the person is brought up by the waters. Yam jalam dharayati saha jalandharaha. The one whom the waters protected, sustained and brought up, he is Jalandhara. So Jalandhara is brought up as the offspring of Varuna or the Lord of the waters. In one version of the story, Jalandhara is very pained to hear about the Samudra Manthana that happened, where all the treasures and gems of Varuna or the ocean was removed out and given to different people. In a way, the waters were exploited. So Jalandhara wishes to avenge this across all the devas, because it is the main intent of the devas which led to the Samudra Manthana. So he decides to avenge this by acquiring great strength and then waging a war against the devas. So he performs penance towards Brahma, asking for immortality. But Brahma denies him immortality, but the boon given to Jalandhara is that as long as his wife and he remain loyal to each other and maintain fidelity amongst themselves, Jalandhara will remain invincible. But the moment either of them become disloyal or infidel, then Jalandhara is bound to die. Knowing his spouse, Jalandhara assumes that this is never going to happen, and hence, having gained a sort of immortality, he starts now committing atrocities against the devas to avenge what they did during the Samudra Manthana. The devas in turn go and pray to Shiva to put an end to Jalandhara, because Jalandhara, in a way, was created by Shiva himself. Shiva creates a chakra, a special ayudha called chakra or the discus, to put an end to Jalandhara, and he releases the chakra towards Jalandhara, but the chakra fails to cut Jalandhara or behead Jalandhara because of the boon that Jalandhara had received from Brahma. Having known that, Vishnu is sent to the wife of Jalandhara. The name of the wife of Jalandhara is Vrinda or Brinda. So Vishnu comes in the form of Jalandhara to Brinda. And for a moment, Brinda assumes that the person in front of her is Jalandhara, and she washes his feet, assuming that to be her husband. But very soon she recognizes that this is someone else and not Jalandhara. And when Vishnu reveals his true form, she's taken aback and also feels sad that she assumed some other person to be her husband. Unable to bear this folly of hers, she decides to self-immolate herself, but also pronounces a curse on Vishnu, who cheated her, saying that Vishnu will be worshipped in the form of a stone and that he will also be separated from his spouse. Saying so, Vrinda self-immolates herself. This is the reason why Vishnu is worshipped in the form of Shalagrama, the stone, as well as in the Ramavatara, he is separated from Sita, who is taken away by Ravana. Now, with this episode happening, the chakra now beheads Jalandhara because the boon is violated, the conditions of the boon are violated, and Jalandhara falls dead. But in this entire episode, it is well recognized that Brinda was extremely loyal to her husband, and it was through deceit only that she could be cheated or betrayed. Hence, Shiva gives life to Brinda in the form of a plant. He sows a seed on the ashes of Brinda, and a plant sprouts forth from those ashes. And this is given the name of Tulasi. So this Brinda becomes, in her next Janma or in her resurrected form, she assumes the form of a plant, Tulasi. This Tulasi is the one that is given as an offering or a worship to Vishnu, because Vishnu is the one who cheated Brinda. So in the resurrected form, Vishnu repents, or Vishnu atones for the sin by accepting Tulasi as his favorite form of worship. This is the story also that is mentioned for the Tulasi Vivaha or the Tulasi Mahatmya in the Vaishnava Sampradaya. The same story is mentioned with a slight difference that Brinda in her previous life was already a devotee of Vishnu, was already a great staunch devotee of Vishnu. But Vishnu did commit the deceit in order to put an end to Jalandhara. But having known that Brinda is his staunch devotee, he accepts her in her resurrected form of Tulasi and marries her and takes her as his consort. So that is given as a Mahatmya, or the story behind the Tulasi Vivaha. So this story of Jalandhara is very closely related to the genesis or development of Tulasi, and that is why Tulasi is also known as Vrinda. When you say Vrindavana, Vrindavana is nothing but a vana full of Tulasi. So Tulasi is given the name Vrinda or Brinda through this Puranic story. And Jalandhara, as an Asura who committed atrocities against Devas, is put an end to by Shiva. So this is the story behind Jalandhara. Now, among the Attaviratana Kshetrams, the 8 temples worshipping Shiva for his heroic deeds, Tiruvirkudi Virattanam, Tiruvirkudi Virattaneshwarar, that is the temple where Shiva is worshipped in the form of Jalandhara-samhāra-mūrti or Jalandhara-vadha-mūrti, and the Ambal here is known as Parimalanayaki or Elavar Kurali. There is a Sannidhi for Tulasi as well in this Kshetra, and the Utsava Murti in this kshetra is Parameshwara holding the chakra. He also holds the chakra. And it is said that this chakra was then gifted by Shiva to Vishnu later. So the Utsava Murti holds the chakra, which is testimony to the story of him putting an end to Jalandhara by beheading Jalandhara. So this is the story of Jalandhara and the temple that worships Jalandhara. Among the three Shaivite saints, Tirujnana-sambandar has sung one padigam on this kshetram of Tiruvirkudi. It is referred to as Virkudi Veerattanam. So, Virkudi Veerattanathurai Ammane, the Lord residing in Virkudi, in the Veerattanam of Virkudi. So, with this, we conclude the Attaveerattana Kshetrams, the 8 heroic deeds of Shiva. We spoke about Shiva, who put an end to the Tripurantaka-mūrti, to Andhakasura, to Gajasura, to Yama, to Kamadeva, to Daksha-yajna, subdued the arrogance of Brahma, and now he put an end to Jalandhara. These different names of Shiva appear in different worship forms and names and stotras of Shiva, as Tripurari, as Gajari, as Kalantaka-mūrti, as Antakantaka-mūrti, as Andhakantaka-mūrti, Gajasura-samhāra-mūrti, and so many names. So this concludes that series of the 8 heroic deeds of Shiva. I hope all of you enjoyed the session. Do keep watching the sessions on Subbu's Corner, and I shall meet you next week. Until then, namaskar.